What up? I'm actually in bed all day trying to recover from this little bug I done caught. But I just seen an interesting tweet and I wanted to talk about it. Tariq Nasheed, one of my go to people for black history, African history, black history, Hidden Colors, one of the greatest black documentary I ever seen. And I'm one that reads and watches documentaries. I don't just watch documentaries or go from one source. But, anyways, anyone who knows me knows my extensive background on black history. But, anyways, so Tariq posted up about, he's just been back and forth a lot about like ADOS, which I don't fully understand. I'm not going to pretend like I do. I guess it involves reparations for the black community and immigrant talk, right? So it's really weird, because I guess, an anomaly. I'm in a weird space with that because my family are Jamaicans, and I was born in America, but very Jamaican culture wise. So I've seen both sides of it, but I'm a black man. I'm a black immigrant to a degree. It's so strange, man. I don't know how to put my finger on it when it comes to like. So his tweet was basically about the taxes that black citizens pay and where those taxes go as far as like immigrants are concerned. And I guess his argument is that like our black dollars are contributing to immigrants that don't give a shit about black people. Now I will tell you this. Um, Phobia, xenophobic behavior from humans, I guess it's natural. Just from, I mean, yeah, even not to get too deep on some shit, but like, even when you watch animals and ducks and shit, I always notice that like ducks of the same kind of color or the same particular type of animal only click with each other. If you go to the pond, you usually see only certain types of ducks in one click, and then like the other animals in another, and like they don't fuck with each other. They don't mix and mingle like that. So is that like us also as humans? Are we, just naturally that way? I mean, even Africa that had different tribes warring against each other. Um, but it's so deep and cumbersome. It's so much to it, so much depth to it. Like it's hard for me to just place an opinion. Uh, I've experienced racism for sure in this country, um, whether it be through employment, just basic day to day activity. I've had guns pointed at me. From the only time a gun was ever pointed at me were from cops because I fit a description, and that was when I was a teenager. This is like regular things as a black man. It's regular. Like you've probably been through it, or falsely accused, or got sent to jail for some shit that like my white counterparts would be get sent home, given a warning for. I've experienced that. Um, and again, my family are black Jamaicans, immigrants, and there's a lot of ignorant ass Jamaicans that like use the same talking points as white people because we were good, shit. Ain't much like good slaves, I would say, just regurgitating the same talking points. And that's across the board. I feel like white supremacy did a great hell of a job, man. They're fucking God, the way they got us so confused and the way they got us all separated, like black Dominicans, black Puerto Ricans that like act like they're not black, and like, they separate themselves from black people, Jamaicans who look West African as fuck, and like bro, like, you can't really tell them apart, but they would talk down on Americans. I've experienced it. I experienced it as a Jamaican. I'm not Jamaican enough. My patois is not good enough for Jamaicans to consider me one of them. And I'm also a bit too Jamaican for Americans, and it gets frustrating for me. But I just accept it. This is just I'm here for a purpose, and being in between all of it because I take to Black American history because I grew up in America. I feel like I had to master the society and figure out how to maneuver in the society for me to just have sanity in this crazy ass fucking country. For me to have my own sanity, I took to the Black American history. I just needed to know what the hell is going on and why do I go through the things I go through, and understand that this is way beyond me. This started way before I was born. So not take it personal. You know, the things that may have happened to me in my experience as a tall, big black man, and the way I get treated sometimes. But yeah, it's so strange, man, because I see it. You know, even as a Jamaican, it's like, yeah, Yankee. You know, they talk down on Black Americans. They damn sure do. They definitely do. You know, it's like, yeah, Yankee, you're not one of us. And tribalism. We all have this tribalism thing in us. You know, Jamaicans talk down on Haitians. I've seen it. I've witnessed it. I've I remember being in, my old hood some years back, 'cause I don't go there too often, but whatever. And one of my homies that I graduated with was like, "Yo, you Jamaican?" And I was like, "Yeah." It was like he knew me since the third grade. I guess he didn't know I was Jamaican. And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, word, I never knew that." But like, man, at least you're not Haitian or something. And I'm like, what? Like, it's like we are a confused bunch of people, man. As if like we're not just one boat stop away. Like literally, it's just like my ancestors landed in Jamaica. Your ancestors might have already been in America. I'm not going to talk about this whole slave trade conspiracy shit because I definitely believe that a lot of Black Americans been here and they're the real Native Americans. But I'm not going to go there. But man, the way we're separated and confused. I've had so many different experiences. I experienced more racism from Latin people than white people, and that's straight up and down. You know, Mexicans, more so Mexicans, Central Americans, Boricuas, and Dominicans. I feel more accepted. You know, I only, my Dominican barbershop and shit like that. It's just like I feel more accepted. But I've experienced, you're right, the word racism gets used quite loosely, and we could go back and forth prejudice between prejudice versus racism. I'm one to not because racism is so systematic. Like a lot of shit y'all calling racism ain't racism. It's just prejudice, xenophobia, whatever words you want to use. People not liking you because you're not one of them. I've experienced it from Mexicans plenty. Where I need to like brush up on my Spanish and like, call them senor and whatever just to let them know, like, like shit, like I see you, bro. I see you treating me different. I remember I went to this bike shop around the corner. My neighborhood's, filled with Mexicans. It's mainly a Spanish neighborhood. And homie was acting like he didn't want to deal with me, didn't want to talk to me. And he knew English. It's not that he didn't know English. All I was just trying to ask for some air. And like, if I needed to pay for the air, I'd pay for it. And he was just like being an asshole to me, telling me, "Or do you want to buy this piece and buy a pump yourself?" And did it. I'm just like, "Senor, like I just want a little bit of air in my bike so I don't crash and die." Bike shops usually provide air for bikers, and like he was giving me a hard time, and I knew it was because like I'm not one of y'all. I went to Mexico. They treated us like shit in Cancun. Me and my friends went to Mexico. We're all black men over 6 foot tall. They loved our women, but us as men, they treated us horribly as far as service is concerned. I'd never go back to Cancun. Maybe other parts of Mexico are different, but me as a black man, I see the difference between they treat black women because they want to fuck black women and black men. And I don't know what it is, but whatever it is, I've experienced it. That's my experience, my personal experience. I've also experienced something similar in New York. I was really caught off guard by this one Peruvian man that was giving me a hard time in a pizza shop. Like basically talking down on. I was wearing like African clothes, and He was just kind of like giving me the shits, and Gay served me like cold pizza, and I was just so in the zone. Like I don't feel like I reacted properly in that situation, but I definitely remember like this Central American man that was just like, you could just tell he didn't want to serve me, you know. And I try to look beyond that and not assume first thing, oh, you're being racist. You know, I'm not one to just try and, pull that card. Everything is not always that deep. Sometimes shit is just simple as like whatever. You know, maybe they have an attitude that day. Maybe they didn't feel like doing their job that day. Whatever the case is, but I see patterns. I'm intelligent enough to see patterns and see that like immigrants don't like black Americans, whether they're black or not. Another example, I went to, uh, I was dating a South African woman, way while back now, right? 8, 9 years ago or some shit, maybe 10 years ago. Uh, and she took me to a party in like DC or something. There's so Africans run DC, my nigga. Like shit, like they uh, gas stations. They're the Indians of DC, where they're the owning the gas stations and the Dunkin' Donuts. I don't know per se, but definitely gas stations and whatever. So, anyways, she took me to this rich ass African's crib, mad cars in the garage, nice pool in the back in DC. And mind you, I drove down there for her birthday party. And when I tell you that when she got around her other African counterparts, she turned into a different person. It was like she didn't know me. And I just remember feeling so like out of place because she's so loving when we're by ourselves. But once she got around her other Africans, it was like she felt. I'm very empathic, um, and I'm very intuitive, very spiritual. I know feelings, I know energy. That's all I'm good at. That's mainly what I'm good at because I'm not super, whatever. But her energy literally changed, uh, where I just felt like I needed to leave. Like I felt like out of place. But I drove to DC. This is like 5 hours away, and for her birthday party, and she was literally ignoring me. It felt like a nightmare on some real shit. Like it didn't even feel real because like this was somebody at the time that I loved, And like once she got around these dudes, I want to say they were either Nigerian or South African. But once she got around them, yeah, I think West Africans, Nigerians or whatever, and they were just looking at me and my friend like, I mean, could be many reasons. That Africans are usually very like driven. They have a strong family, and they send their kids to school, become doctors. These motherfuckers have money. They definitely had money, and they were doctors, and like maybe they're looking down on us because we're not as successful. I mean, if they knew that, I don't know. But at the end of the day, we were black Americans from what they can see. We weren't one of them, and they literally treated me and my friend like shit, like we weren't welcome. After she done like, man, that was something else. Like I remember going through hell, like making her a mixtape, back when dubbing CDs was a thing, and I like made her a mixtape of all her favorite songs to play at this party, and like the men there wanted us to leave pretty much. Um, like I thought I was gonna be able to at least like sleep on a couch or something like that because at this point she wasn't messing with me at all. Like she would high and by me pretty much when like we were dating at the time, like we were fucking. And once we got around her African friends, it was like she didn't want anything to do with me. And I ended up being stranded. I didn't cause a scene. Anybody who knows me knows I'm very nonviolent and I'm not very confrontational. Well, I will confront you, but I'm not aggressive. And yeah, they pretty much kicked us out because according to them, they didn't know we were supposed to spend the night, but it was like a late ass party, and we drove from New York to D.C. And I ended up having to sleep at good thing I just have friends in every city, and stayed at a friend's crib. And at the time, I didn't know anything. I didn't understand why we were being treated that way. Like my knowledge as far as history and the tribalism between us colored folks and all of that. Like I was still a baby at the time when it came to knowledge. So it was just like, I just remember like, man, I was just being treated badly by these Africans. And I'm like, but we're all black. but I'm not one of them. And again, back to this whole like thing I saw about Tariq posting. I don't know if I understand the taxes enough to understand where exactly our tax money is going to as far as like immigrants starting business. I do know that like immigrants, black Americans ain't that goddamn lazy. They're not that lazy. I will say that I noticed that like Indians get Dunkin' Donuts, maybe they get business loans at a cheaper rate, whatever, they get businesses easier, or immigrants do at least, then they get more programs. I don't know. I can't sit here and pretend like I'm an expert, but I'm a black man, Jamaican, African person that's fucking confused. Um, I don't. I'm not with this whole cancel culture. Like if I don't agree with Tariq, even though I've learned an immense amount of history from his documentaries, and I look up to the brother, uh, you can disagree with somebody and not cancel them. You people are really like turning into extremists. We're gonna destroy our planet with this extreme energy and thought process behind things. You can disagree with somebody and agree with them on many other ways. Like I say in the song Malcolm on Twitter, like I wouldn't agreed with everything Martin Luther King stood for. I didn't agree with everything that all my, I would say, leaders stood for. And it's okay. It's okay to have disagreements. But again, I'm not going to sit here and pretend like I know enough about like the taxes and whatnot to say pro immigrants or whatever. I know that my family needed to come to this country to make a better living for themselves, and Jamaica was too hostile, it was too third world for them to for my parents to want to continue living out there. Um, Whatever the case is, I was the first American born, so they made it a case to come out here, and they fought to come out here for a quote unquote better life. We could go back and forth on that all day. I'm one that's ready to leave this country. I'm so ready to go live in another country, because I've traveled plenty of countries and see there's a lot more pros than cons in other countries than in America, especially as a black man. I get more respect out the country than my own country, where I've been living and paying taxes and working all my damn life. And then to have other people from different countries come here that look like me and treat me poorly, it's just confusing. I think white supremacy has us all mind fucked, has us all under this spell to where you're either with them and you're talking the same talking points as them, or you're fighting a losing battle. Cause they're winning this shit mentally for sure. They got us just hating on each other. Simply put. Uh, but yeah, drop some comments for me. I'm really confused on this topic as a black American, Jamaican, African man, um, that cannot be boxed in with multiple experiences. I don't know what the solution is either. But, I do not feel welcome by other colored nationalities. I don't. I'm going to Africa, South Africa, next month, and for my first time. And I'm hoping it's like one of those situations where it's like I won't get treated like the way I got treated when I was in DC. I do feel like people come to this country and start acting different. They just come here and start feeling themselves and like wanting to separate themselves from anybody who doesn't follow that same path. But anyways, when I go to Africa, I do hope to see. I hope to be accepted. You know, I'm not a super successful doctor, lawyer, medical. Person like they respect. But whatever. Do hope to have a good time, and we will see. But drop some comments. Let me know. Educate me on the taxes, whatever. Point me in the right direction as far as like what y'all think, and based on my experience. And have empathy, y'all. Have empathy. Be a free thinker. The world would be a better place with more free thinkers. Peace, Passport.